Julia Gabor and Jeffrey Jordan are the co-founders of the mindful co-founders of Kid Grit. Kid Grit is an SEL curriculum. They do presentations. They've done presentations all over the country. Julia was with us at our state conference last year at the Lake of the Ozarks at Mosac in November. So we're honored and privileged to have them today. They can talk about social emotional learning now. They've created a pandemic guide to SEL in this pandemic that we're in. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey and to Julia. And so, like I said, if you keep yourselves on mute, that'll be great. And then we'll have time for questions as we go through. So Julia and Jeffrey, it's all you.
I'm feeling this interweb energy right now. 300 people is like, I said, we're going to break the internet. Missouri, you're breaking the internet today. So hello, my friends and colleagues. We're so excited to be here. We're going to present a short activity, and then we're going to go into some Q&A. We're so interested to hear what you have questions about. My name is Julia Gabor. I have on this call Jeffrey Jordan, who will pick it up after me. He's my mindful co-founder, and he'll share a little bit about his story and why we got into this work. And then also on this call, you might meet Stephanie Garces, who is an executive assistant, an enlightened executive assistant, we call her. She's born and raised in Los Angeles and works in an after-school program called Lennox Leap here in LA. And then she works for us also as a support for everything we do. And then there's also Grace Cecilio, and Grace is also born and raised in Los Angeles. She is a credentialed elementary school teacher, also a certified yoga instructor. So she helps us with our mindfulness and in blending mindfulness with social emotional learning. So we have a lot of talent in my team today, and they'll be on the call kind of supporting us too. Just a quick note about me, where I come from. It's important that I just share a few bullets that I'm in this work because I grew up in New York City in a kind of tough time with parents who got divorced, who didn't have a lot of money and left me to my own devices. And by the time I was a teenager, we figured out, my father had a substance abuse issue. So now I'm like 13 years old. My parents are divorced. We don't have any money. And I have one parent who has a drinking problem. Like, if I pause right there, would you say that you know any students in your programs who have similar upbringings or backgrounds right now? Put your thumbs up if you have, or put some snaps in the air, right? Like this thing that happens to young people while they're being raised these are things that happen throughout decades and decades and decades, and it doesn't change. I don't imagine it will change. There are some external factors in the world that may change things like the internet and social media and how we're communicating. So as educators, we have to come up with new ways to connect to kids. And my company has taken on, some of those challenges in reaching young kids. But the reason why I am in this world of youth development and education and after school is because I came from a kind of volatile background, and I never wanted a kid to feel the way that I felt. It's that simple. It's not more confusing than that. I really wanted kids to feel like they had a voice, they have a place to go, that they can express themselves, and that they can see themselves as positive contributors to society. So when I met Jeffrey, who I kind of grew up with, we got together, and he'll tell you his past, but we took the best of both of us and we created Kid Grit. We launched 2 years ago, and now we have a company that sits with curriculum in 15 different states in 2 years. We serve educators in trainings and in conferences, giving out free ideas, and we've become really a training hub now because we have some unique ways that we deliver information, and our content is a beautiful blend of kind of holistic health and wellness, mindfulness, and social emotional learning. We created this COVID guide that Brad just mentioned. We're going to put the link to our website so you can download it too, which is 5 to 10 hours of activities that you can do. You can do them as discussions online, or when you go back into the program, you can do these activities, which will really help kids start to feel safe. Like, our mission is to help kids feel safe too, understand what happened, give them knowledge so that they don't feel powerless. So the guide is called Knowledge is Power. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Jeffrey, who will share a little bit more intimately, a little bit about himself, and then we're gonna do an activity. So hang on to your hats. 300 people in Missouri. Let's do it.
Thank you, Julia. I appreciate it. I appreciate being here and seeing most of your faces on here. It's really wonderful. Just to be brief, but to kind of touch on the parallel universe that Julia and I grew up. And I was actually born in the Midwest and moved to New York, or airdropped into New York at age 6. My mother went on vacation there and never returned to Indiana, but she called for me, and I was dropped into New York City at the age of 6. And it took me about 2 years, by the age of 8, that I realized that I was there to raise my mother, who was addicted to drugs and alcohol. So there's so much more to this story, but I can tell you that on my way navigating that reality, I learned a lot of skills along the way, and I developed a gift, or I earned the gift of seeing what was missing. I became pretty self-aware, and as I grew and became more accomplished in college and afterwards as an entrepreneur, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what my purpose was. My purpose was to help others, and specifically youth, and develop life skills and mentoring curriculum. And I developed my own nonprofit. And after some trials and tribulations, I actually reinvented myself and got deeper into some holistic work around wellness and health and life coaching. And that's when Julie and I reconnected as adults. And because we don't have much time, I'm just going to tell you that that is the energy that came when we essentially married holistic wellness and education. And that's what Kid Grit is really about. And what we're here today for in this limited amount of time is to pour into you guys. We definitely want to make this time with you is something that serves you, that gives you pause for reflection, that helps you connect deeper to your own self. Because the bottom line is that we cannot serve youth in the most ideal way regarding social emotional learning, mindfulness, character education, if we are not healthy ourselves, because there will be a disconnect. And a part of this activity that we're doing today is going to try to have you connect with yourselves deeper and acknowledge some areas in your life that you might not have thought about, or you've been afraid to think about, or you haven't genuinely reflected on. So with that, we'd like to lead you into this activity. Julie, unmute.
I'm gonna unmute. I'm gonna share my screen here, and we'll start from here. So here we have the beginning slide. This is our story, right? Our story is always, you know, how this happened, why we're in this work. It's not like we're a bunch of clinicians who are from a university that think we have like the best practice for kids. We lived through some really, you know, tougher times, and we came out okay. And we have information to share. So let's see, I think I'll take this one. So if you haven't been on Zoom, you know, there's 300 people, and we're doing these trainings around the nation right now. We're seeing, just like we're seeing with our young people, that they have, we call it digital inequity, that not everybody knows how to use the same programs, the same technology. We like to share some ideas for you on Zoom if you've never been here before. So Brad was sharing earlier how to use the chat box, which is if you toggle your mouse, you're gonna see a little box in the middle where you can click chat box, and then you can write in questions for us. There are hand signals also. If you toggle your mouse, you'll see a section on the bottom, a little icon that has, like Jeffrey showing his thumbs up right now. You can wave or have a thumbs up. And we love that when people say things that you like, use the hand signals, right? Just let them know. This is a way to keep connecting while we're in a virtual world. Thanks, Brad. We're going to do some breakout rooms. Brad has control of that, but that's what's going to come after this in this activity. And, you know, we also ask that respectfully for this hour that you try to remove and kind of have some self-awareness and management around other technology so that you're really staying focused with us. We know that you're in your homes. We know that you are with your kids, and we love kids in these videos because in these Zoom calls, because that's real life and we're dealing with it, and no one's trying to pretend that that's not happening. But you can, while you can't control your kids, you could probably control your technology. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in terms of social and emotional learning. So, and also one last thing, if you love what someone says, we love to do, let's put some snaps in the air, right? This is old, this is like in a room with people. Thank you so much, Selena. Appreciate you. So we love the snaps. So we're going to go forward with this activity. Jeffrey, take it away.
Fantastic. So I mentioned a little bit about my holistic wellness work as a health and life coach. And one of the things that was developed and I've used with families, I've used it with individuals and with youth is this wheel that we have here. So this essentially is a life satisfaction survey. We believe in these 10 segments on this wheel. All of these different things make up our own wellness. And we have to gauge, we have to spend some time, think about it, introspection, think about how we feel, how satisfied we are from a scale of 1 to 100, percentage-wise, how we show up in the world. And I always lead with the example of confidence. So I believe that I'm an extremely confident human being, but I'm as equally committed to being a lifelong learner. So I would rate my confidence at about 80%, because even though I've talked in front of thousands of people and very confident in what I have to say and you know how I feel about myself, we can always improve. So I would mark my level of confidence at about 80%. Grace, I don't know if you're utilizing the
I have the PowerPoint.
You have
Can't
it?
find the yeah, but I can't find the annotate in my share. Hold on a second. I'm stopping share.
Okay. So that wheel that will come back to us has 10 segments. Confidence is one of them. Responsible decision making, self-management, self-regulation, mindful eating, physical activity, social and cultural awareness, digital consciousness and screen time. These are just several of the things, and the epitome of it all is self-awareness. There's the wheel back again. Home environment is another one. So I always try to give examples, and what you'll see on the next page of this is we give out detailed definitions of each of these. But I've touched on pretty much all of the segments, and the way that we would mark it is we would take a dot and place it on that segment. So if it's 80%, it would be towards the periphery, towards the outside of the circle. And if you have a lot of room for self-improvement and are not satisfied with this area in your life, your dot is going to be on the line closest to the center of the circle, right around there. So just point the arrow to confidence, Julia, about 80%. You see right there. You see what we're talking about here. So the more the confident towards the periphery, less confident towards the middle. You're going to plot your dots on each segment after you really take some time. One of the things that we say across the country, so important, is that please do not BS yourself. There is no way that we can, really get into the work of self-improvement if we're not authentic with ourselves and genuine with our responses. So you want to take some time and really dig into that. Relationship skills, you'll see that could be with spouse, your partner, your kids, your coworkers, and your friends. For the purpose of this exercise, you want to do a cumulative sum on how you believe that your relationships are working in your life. Mindful eating, do you eat for nutrition, or do you eat for another reason, emotional reason, or boredom, things of that, and especially boredom in this time of quarantine. So you'll see that all of these different sections. Home environment would be, how do you feel when you open your door? You know, do you walk into a very organized and calm environment, or is it chaos? Do you not like your lighting? You know, is there things that you can really improve to make it a more peaceful place? So all of these things we bring to light. And when in working with clients over the years, is we chart out a 6-month course, and then we would revisit this every month. And what's important to know about the time that we have today is that this is just a snapshot today. And in the work in the trainings that we've done with others during this time, is that you'll see that a lot of your answers today could have been different a month ago before this situation started. So you can be gentle with yourself. This is going to change over time. As a matter of fact, once you plot your assessment, this is really what you do with the results, is you find out what you can do, what activities you can do, what we can do together, either personally or as a collective in a team dynamic or a team culture, or even with your youth. And that will improve these certain areas. So are we going to take them to breakout rooms now?
No, I'm going to help out here because I don't think they have it in front of them. So what we're going to ask you to do is to take a piece of paper and to draw a circle. And then you're going to see in the chat box in a few seconds, those 10 sections are going to appear in there. The 10 sections of the wheel are mindful eating, and you're going to create, however, chicken scratch it. It doesn't matter. We're sitting at home. We're virtually connecting. Like, no pressure to make a perfect wheel. We are going to post this for you later, but draw a circle and create those 10 sections best you can. I'm going to just keep saying them out loud so that while you're looking at the chat box, you'll see that's coming from Kid Grit Stephanie there. So the wheel is mindful eating, home environment, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, self-management, physical activity, digital and social media consciousness. Again, we're going to do mindful eating, home environment, digital and social media consciousness, self-management, self-awareness, social and cultural awareness, confidence. I'll share the screen again and say it so you can see what it looks like. So create your own wheel where you are inside of your home right now. Draw it up, create the 10 sections. And then we want you to plot your dots using Jeffrey's words. Plot your dots. So you're going to make a dot and just mark where you feel you're sitting right now on this line. Again, if you're feeling, you'll see my cursor here. If you're feeling not satisfied, you'll put something closer to the center in the middle. If you're feeling super satisfied, you're like, my home environment is awesome. It's peaceful. I love being here. My plants are watered. I cleaned it. I'm donating stuff right now. Like, I love my home environment. Or you could be like, oh my God, my kids are fighting all the time. My husband's not picking up the sock. I mean, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's not feeling like a productive environment, right? So again, plot your dots, right? In each section, responsible decision making. I can't show you the annotation, but if I had 10 dots in this circle, I would connect them, right? And if you watch my cursor, I would connect home environment to self-awareness,
Yep.
decision making, responsible decision, self-management, regulation. Well, if my food is messed up, well, my self-management and regulation is going to be is going to be down here. If I'm exercising often, I'm going to put it here. If I'm not,
if I may just jump in, I would do self-awareness last, because that's actually the epitome of this whole exercise. So you can really let yourself know how self-aware you are once you plot all these other sections.
All right. So you're plotting your dots, you're plotting your dots. We'll give you another 60 seconds. Don't read into it too much. And then we're going to put you in breakout groups. And we're going to give you some instructions for your breakout groups. So just take another 60 seconds to plot your dots.
Stephanie has posted in the chat box the different sections there. Mindful eating, it's all there. So if you don't have those yet, check that chat box.
Thank you.
And then also, I just wanted to share, I have a little sample kit of what it should look like in the end.
I'm gonna go. I stopped sharing. Where did you put it?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right.
You can see here, it's a small sample of what it kind of should look like. Just at home on a piece of paper, simple. I highlighted the ones I need more work on.
Thanks for your honesty.
Yeah. Stephanie said this is what it should look like, not the results of your plotting, but the way that you connected the dots, because everybody's different. Be gentle with yourself, be honest with yourself, because this is where the work starts.
Okay, so we're gonna go into breakout rooms. We'll write the questions in the chat box. In your breakout rooms, there are gonna be 5 to 6 people. Brad is gonna have the handle on that. And we're gonna ask you to share your wheel with each other. Have a conversation. If you're not on camera, share some of your thoughts about what you just did, your reflection around self-awareness. If you are on camera, you can hold it up, or you can just say, one of the things I found really interesting was, or this is something I think I never thought of before. So share your observations about these 10 segments, and we call them strategies or focuses. And then maybe you have something in common with someone else. Maybe you have something totally different. So you'll introduce yourself and then share your wheel. Are there any questions? Please.
Yes, Julia, can you just go back to the PowerPoint and let's keep up the wheel for about another 10 seconds?
Yeah, if folks didn't want to take a picture of it, that could help them too.
Okay. You guys see the wheel? Great. Thanks, Alexis, for nodding your head. I see you. I see you too, Ellie. Nice smile. All right, Jeffrey?
Yes, I was just monitoring the chat box, and that was a request, so that's yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we ready to go? Thumbs up for to Shelly. No, there is no purpose. You can move those segments around. When you use it with kids, you can even change the insides of them. If you're working with younger kids, you make it like things like friends, family, school, homework. You simplify it when you work with younger kids. Again, we'll post these for you so you can have access to them, so you can use this tool.
Yes, that's the magic of this tool as we progress through, but it always starts with ourselves.
We had a super interactive chat room. I love my group. Group 38, what's up? We did great. So just a few things in the chat box, like what was that experience like for you guys? Like, what did you observe? What was it like to talk about these things? What connections did you make? Like, just either throw them in the chat box, or you can speak out loud. We take voices too. Yeah, mindful eating, that's what came up in our group. Yep, Jan said it was weird. She didn't know anybody, but it was nice to hear things that were in common. That's about human connection.
Mm-hmm.
Melanie had great, makes me feel we're all in the same boat, all connected, beautiful. Way too much technology, physical activity, right? You got hard to read, too much tech, mindful eating. These are health, exercise, too much. I mean, these are so common right now. What I shared in my group is that this is happening all over the country. So if you're looking for connection, know that everybody's feeling the same way as you are, right? There's this mindlessness about being at home, and For me, it's like, oh, I shopped for 3 weeks, so my refrigerator is so full. Oh, look at this festival of food I can eat. And it's really important to be very mindful about that mentality when you're shopping. You feel like you're stress eating, right? That's called stress eating, right? We're trying to help ourselves by feeling better, by soothing that, by shoving food in your body. Anyway, lots of really good ways to connect on that. Jeffrey, do you want to talk about how we can use it with staff and students?
Yes, I touched on it a little bit with my group because it's so important for us to start on a personal level. But this tool can be used in a team dynamic with coworkers. It can be used within leadership. You know, it can really open up and connect that and help with the connection. When we start to utilize it with youth, it can really become magical in terms of creating community. And I use an example in our group that if you do it within safe boundaries with your students, then you might have some youth that now can connect to you and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know Miss Hannah felt the same way about this certain area on the wheel. Or now that I know, I can speak to Miss Lindsay about something that I've wanted to talk to somebody about for so long. So there's so much purpose to the wheel. But the main thing that I want to share with you guys is that if you do it once, it's not going to be that effective. But if you commit to it personally and professionally and utilize it throughout a period of time, a lot of things can happen. You can overcome a lot of obstacles and why maybe, you don't want to look at those areas that you're not satisfied with. I think that's the scariest part, right? If we're dissatisfied with something, we're faced with taking some action. And this is the first part of it, because from this wheel and from this assessment, you can personally create goals. You can get mentoring and support and coaching. You can also set up accountability, structures with your coworkers, your family, your friends. You can do so many things with it, and you can play with it and change the topics as well. But the main thing is not running away from your authentic and genuine answers and putting in that time. And as educators, we need to make sure that we're as healthy as possible so that when it comes time for us to facilitate the very same content, there's no disconnect. Julie, you have anything to add there?
No, I love when you say that.
I'm glad you love it. I appreciate you for loving it.
Okay, I appreciate that you just remind us that we have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of the kids that we take care of and our staff. So, with that, we're going to close up that activity. We took a lot of time. Want to open it up for some questions about, this or what's going on, or if you have, and whatever it is, Brad. I don't know how you want to facilitate, but we're here for you.
All right, so these are just a couple that have popped up in the chat box. So the first one kind of was about the wheel, and Jeffrey, you kind of touched on it, but would you use the same wheel with kids or a different wheel?
I would create, well, age appropriate. I would create your own wheel. I think Julia touched on it with examples where you can just, make family, friends, homework, after school time, simple things like that. As a matter of fact, Grace, who was on this call, she designed the wheel for our K-3 curriculum. So, and then instead of rating it on a scale of, 0 to 100%, it's done in smiley faces or sad faces. So you can really get creative on different ways in different groups. And you might have a cohort that, is you're dealing with some very specific things, and then and you can, take complete creative freedom with it.
Yeah, you can, and when kids get really good at it, when you're working with them, like Jeffrey said, over and over again, you can have them design their own wheels, right? They love to. They like to put their own sections and make 5 sections, not 10. Don't make it super hard for them. So 5 sections, and they can put on things. It can be just things that are happening, that day. But it's very fluid. This tool is really fluid. So yeah, you can recreate it, and you can have them create it. You can use it as a pulse check. A lot of some teachers that we work with will use the same wheel 3 times and have the kids use a different marker every single Monday, so that you can check on what's going on when they come home from the weekend. You can see how they're feeling, and then they put it in a folder, and then you start a new sheet, and they do, so that kids can track their own progress.
I'd like to touch on something, Brad, if I can. I see in the chat box, Megan said, with self-regulation, how do you walk the line of treating yourself and self-care? And I'll tell you this, it is simply a mindset shift. You have to think about treating yourself properly. Self-care is not selfish. It's not. It has to be the primary thing. And I used an example of this on the last call, and forgive me for getting too personal, but a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with cancer and I had to have surgery. And I needed to put everything to the side to focus on my recovery and my physical therapy in order to just walk again. And I had to understand that that had to be my primary focus. And a lot of people were disappointed along the way because I stopped being myself for a little while. I couldn't be relied upon as much. I couldn't be the person that they went to. My self-care was not selfish because now I'm back better than I was before. So that mindset shift has to be treating yourself, whether you might be thinking about treating yourself with, with ice cream or whatever, but shift that around. That's a treat. And all of that can be done in moderation. And again, this wheel is about balance. If you haven't figured it out, it's how do you balance it all? Because it's all connected. So self-care is not selfish. Treating yourself is self-care. But it all starts out with a mindset shift.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. This was a question that popped up right before we went to the breakouts. And somebody had asked, what if being hard on yourself is your norm? What if being hard on yourself is your norm?
I can jump in here for a sec on that. This last call we had, really, Brad and gang were directed. It was self-care for staff only. It really didn't have any. We're doing some coaching for educators in and after school around wellness. And one of the slides that we talked about after behavior shifts, like talking about how to make some changes, was about taking it slow, being kind to yourself. Don't be afraid of failing and know that tomorrow's another day. There's an acronym that I use from, I stole it from another program, and it's called HALT, which is, it stands for hungry, H, angry, A, lonely, and tired, HALT. And when that starts to happen and you go into the downward spiral of beating yourself up and being hard, or trying to, even in the opposite direction where you're trying to overcompensate or work too hard and you're striving for perfection, perfection is a dangerous area to live in, because you will constantly be measuring yourself against something that is almost impossible, especially if you're really hard on yourself already, because you'll never be able to stop, and it is like a spiral. So really being kind, forgiveness, to start to do some deep reflection work in journaling, taking some proactive steps when that starts to happen, acknowledge how you feel, try to figure out what's making you feel that way. And for me personally, I like to offset it by doing something positive in that moment, right? When that negative self-talk happens and I'm really hard on myself, if it has to do with health, maybe I do 10 push-ups on the spot. If it has to do with feeling low, maybe I call somebody and say, hey, this is what's happening to me right now. I'm gonna ask for help. I'm gonna let go of my pride around it.
Yeah, Julie, if I could just touch on that too. A big part of my program as a life coach before, based off of this wheel, there was a section in time and activity, and the main focus and intention of it was get slow. Get slow. If we think about those times where we're all running around, we're all doing things for other people, family work, we have to find those times, those pockets in our day where we can just get slow. And whether it be breathing or playing a guitar, I'm just thinking about examples of just taking a walk, taking a picture, observing things that we didn't acknowledge before. That getting slow is really, really important, and it goes along with the HALT acronym as well.
And then I would like to hear from Grace, who is our really mindfulness and yoga guru, to talk a little bit about the power of breath around negativity and being stuck somewhere. I'd love just a couple of seconds from Grace, if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of our energy, especially as we're sitting around here or sitting around doing nothing or being stagnant, our breath is a really powerful tool that literally moves your energy. So whether it's a strong emotion or if it's just feeling stuck, you can really just take a moment and just breathe deeply. And a simple breath technique that I like to use is just inhale for a count of 4. And then exhale for a count of 6. And when you actually extend your exhales, it helps to restore your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for your rest and digest. And that really allows you to come back into a state of calm.
Parasympathetics, I can't even say that.
Parasympathetic.
Parasympathetic. Nice. Adding that research into mindfulness makes it feel like it's real, because you know what? It is real. For all those naysayers out there, mindfulness is not about Buddhism. It's not about some yogi weird like kind of thing anymore. Mindfulness is a real practice that helps people in mental and physical health. So thanks, Grace.
Hey, Julia, can I add something real quick? For those on here who are leaders of programs, one of the best things you can do for your staff is give them permission to slow down. Oftentimes, I think for those of us who are in both of those situations, I've felt when I've worked for someone, all I was asking for in moments when I felt overwhelmed was just permission to step back. And I think the best gift we can give, we need to give ourselves self-permission, but I really want to encourage those who are leaders to step back and kind of try to feel. You may not be feeling what your staff's feeling, but try to feel that and then give them permission. Oftentimes, all they're trying to do is keep charging ahead to make sure they meet the expectations, and what they need is permission to step back, that's all the expectation they have. And that's all the stuff you guys are saying is so key to that.
And I'd like to touch on a question I saw in the chat box about 20 minutes ago. I didn't want to, the question was, how do you deal with youth that compare their wheels? And my question back to you is, how do we fight comparing ourselves, right? So we do this activity sometimes in groups, and you'll see how people will look over and say, oh, you gave yourself that? Yeah, I'm gonna bump myself up. So that's why we always talk about, really being authentic and genuine. What I would suggest is that, especially with youth, is that it's done individually first, and then through discussion, allow them to see if they share, and then they connect their similarities together. So doing it in an open forum might be very difficult with youth, some age groups. It's even so difficult with some adults. But I would start that way, so everybody has their safe space to take the time to get slow and introspect about all these different areas.
Yeah, I'll just pick up on that too. And after they start to get comfortable with the activity, remember, you're not doing it just once, right? You're doing it multiple times. Putting them in pairs and asking them to really look at it without comparison and competitiveness, but to look at for things that are different and also things that are the same, and really have the opportunity after they do that for a few minutes to come back to the whole group and then say to everyone, so what did you learn about things that were similar or different? Like, is there anything wrong with being different? Like, ask the question, even though it might be obvious, right? Is it bad to have differences? Like, doesn't that make us more interesting? Doesn't that make us more layered? Like, we wouldn't want everyone to be the same. Then we would all look like the people on TV, and they're not real. So, like let's celebrate our differences. You can get into social and cultural awareness. So that's a really nice way to have them break them off into doing quick pair shares and then open it up to the room to have a conversation. Okay. What else? Where are we at, Fred?
Those, I think y'all hit all the questions. There's one just popped up. You feel this would work with pre-K students that all have IEPs?
That's a great question. I'm not going to pretend that I've worked with that population of youth myself firsthand. I would ask the group if they had any ideas. If I were in a classroom, it would be easier than to think about how to do it virtually, because we do a lot of this on the board, like the simple we would do for younger kids. We would, and Grace, I was going to say, I think you're going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, definitely it's different in the virtual world, but in a classroom setting, I love the idea of like having this circle as like a floor mat and then having students literally place themselves in the circle so they can see like, oh, I feel really good and confidence, and then, or they can like run to this side of the circle and you can physically move your bodies, and that works whether you have an IEP or not. But yeah, definitely with the virtual space, you'll definitely need adult help, but having maybe like one side of the room being really satisfied and having one side of the screen being dissatisfied, and having that movement, but still reflecting on each area.
I would also encourage those of you who may be working with preschoolers, and especially with this situation, if you have a parents as teachers in your region, reach out to resources that they may be able to provide to you that you can provide to those parents, because now they're not getting those contacts in homes with those families of preschoolers. That may be another avenue that may not be virtually, but at least providing some of those resources there too to help in this regard.
So you guys have hit the questions that have come up. So if you have more to go, or we can just ask for more questions and we'll just keep going. I didn't know what else, if you have more presentation. If so, great. And if not, what other questions do you have? Go ahead and put those in the chat box, and we can ask questions of Julia and Jeffrey and Grace and Stephanie as well.
Jeffrey, maybe you want to talk about how a little bit more about how to walk away with action steps on the wheel. Like how do you turn it into action?
Yeah, I was actually gonna go back to how I started this and remind you that, or I don't have to remind you. There's a lot of professional development we all go through that provide other resources, for us to work with youth and things like this. What this hour is really for you. This is all about you and all about a starting point for how you can really assess yourself and be honest, and then have a starting point. And the way that you can walk away is by developing 3 small action steps. I don't want to call them goals, because I prefer to refer them as intentions, because goals can discourage you if you don't meet them. But if you have an intention on making certain improvements in your life, whether it's eating or physical or movement or a balancing digital time, if you create 3 action items and maybe 2 or 3 of the sections where you scored the lowest, that would be a great starting point. If you do that self-reflection first, and then we talked about a little bit before, is seek support, whether it be a friend, whether it be somebody in leadership, a supervisor, somebody that's in professional development work, personal development work. And then maybe you can create accountability groups with action items of people that you work with, or you're friendly with, or you do this activity with, where you can hold each other accountable for those small steps. And once you accomplish that and you keep visiting that, you can build on that. So it's always starting with the small increments, and they're always think of them as intentions and not goals, because it's easy to fall off by not meeting a goal. But if you set an intention and a mindset of continuous improvement, then you're in good shape. And remember, start very small with 3 action items, share them, and seek support.
Okay, I'm reading here. What about SPED kids can use the wheel to help better understand your relationship with them? And how would you avoid triggers with highly traumatic backgrounds with sharing their wheels in smaller, smaller groups? I think same thing, like, you know, for kids with high trauma, you know, the way that we work with social emotional learning in this combination with mindfulness is that these breathing techniques are really important for us to begin any kind of session. So we do a lot of work around breathing. We set norms in the beginning that are student driven, that the student voice and student agency is around the work that we do, and we remind them we do these things as practices every time we meet. We would never walk into a session and start the wheel activity without a little bit of kind of safe space conversation, a pulse check with young people, kind of thumbs up, thumbs down day. And so we would work with kids who are in high trauma or who are triggered in small groups or pairs first. We do a lot of work in short journaling. I call them like short journal writes, where instead of writing like a whole page on a journal on a topic, that we give them a colorful index card. This is really good for kids who have special needs also, that we break it down, everything's smaller and using colors, and let kids work in the kind of multiple intelligence from which they come from, right? So if they're visual learners, let them use a visual learning tool. If they are musical or lyrical, let them work through music, like really to understand how these tools can be repeated, recreated, they are fluid, and let them learn in the way that they are most comfortable learning. So that we can level set with them when we first come in, put them in small groups or pairs, and then start to use the tool that is appropriate, age appropriate for them. We can do colors, different ways to mark, like Grace was talking about with smiley faces or sad faces, or they can make up their own. They can use stars, they can use hearts. Like, it just depends on what kind of learner they are and where they're at. Reading.
Yeah.
Did I miss a question in there?
I think you've hit them. Any other questions? It's a lot to take in, and this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So this is not the end all be all. So, there's a question: should all staff have knowledge about trauma impacted kids, who they are and what their traumas are?
Yeah, I mean, some people have access and funding to the ACEs training, and that's a really powerful training for trauma. I think they also have some free resources online. There are always people in, you know, it's at the state level who do trauma trainings for youth, and it just depends on the focus and the areas that you're in. I do believe that that's important, that trauma training is awesome.
And another question, Julia and Jeffrey: should you put students with similar answers together to connect? So when they do their wheel, do you put those kids together so they can connect?
I mean, I don't know, right, Jeffrey? Like, you won't know until they do it. So you couldn't place them together unless you looked. If you did it in the classroom and then you went around and looked and be like, oh, Rachel, you're going to go with Jose, that would be a lot of extra work for you. I think the randomness is really lovely.
Also, you want to embrace the differences as much as possible as well. The commonalities and the similarities will be there, but I think it's a route to tolerance and acceptance and empathy, you know, when you explore the differences as well.
So I don't know if y'all can see that question that just popped up in the chat box.
What are some other ways than meditation and skill development increase self in comments? Oh, I'm like, I'm like sports.
My answer to that is for Brad to bring us back for 6 more sessions of personal development, and we can really get deep into some other ways.
Yeah.
I say that respectfully. It's just that in an hour, it's very difficult. But to get deep, that's what we love to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but and also aside from that, I think that other than meditation and skill development, which are, you know, tremendous, but to increase self-confidence, it is really deep personal work. It's what Jeffrey said. It's shifting your mindset and committing to it, holding yourself accountable or asking for help when you need it. You have to identify what it is about your confidence that you need help with, and then you can create action steps. You need to spend some really good reflective time. I'm a big writer, so I have journals since I'm a little girl, and I journal anywhere. I journal on my phone. I journal on a napkin. It depends on what's in front of me, but I will journal and write things down about how I'm feeling. And there's so many resources too that are free, right? There's the Calm app that has some really beautiful self-talks. I know even Grace does some free sessions on Instagram that really help you get connected. But it's all the things we talked about slowing down, being kind, being generous, and then participating, taking risks, going out in social groups that you wouldn't, you know, when COVID lifts up, and so joining new social areas of your life, challenging yourself to do things outside your comfort zone. Exercise really helps me feel good. I feel right after that endorphin rush from sweating and exercising is really fantastic, super healthy for you. Sometimes, what else? I think trying to go through a list of all the things to build confidence. I think just taking risks and doing something new is really useful.
So there's a request in the chat box. May we have Grace's Instagram? Oh, Grace beat me to it. It's there. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
I think also in that negative, you know, what did she write? By building increased self-confidence. When you get into that negative self-talk, when that pattern starts to happen, to acknowledge it and be self-aware that it's happening. Freeze. This is what's happening. Acknowledge. Okay, I'm becoming aware of this, right? Freeze, acknowledge, and say, what can I do in this moment to offset the way that I'm feeling? To be super hyper aware of when it starts to happen. What circumstance? Like, was it something somebody said to me? Is it my own problem, or is it really happening? Like, am I imagining it, or did someone say something to me to put me down?
All right. Any other questions? Jeffrey and Julia, do you want to plug Kid Grit real quick? Just give us a quick hitter of what the resources are. The book, Denise said in the chat, when are you coming back? Yeah. So where can they connect with Kid Grit, and what do you have big picture for programs?
We have so much. We have, maybe I said in the beginning of the call, we have flipped backwards, spun, pivoted. We started off being this in-person training company with a curriculum, and now the curriculum is, everyone wants the curriculum because we need this for our kids for when we get back. Our trainings now, we're doing them online. We already have bookings for in-person trainings almost for the whole month of August, because we're hoping it's let up and people know that this SEL and emotional intelligence for leadership or frontline staff, we do it all. And we customize all of our trainings for the organization and the demographic that we're working with. Super important for you to know, we are not a cookie cutter corporate company. We are working with a lot of organizations. We spend a lot of time cultivating the relationship and we have a team of people, as you can see, who are super talented. So curriculum, trainings, online, in person. We're going to release in the next 2 weeks online a virtual training rotation on social emotional learning and mindfulness, social emotional learning and creativity, social emotional learning and leadership. So those are going to pop up on our website soon. We're going to do free parent, free kids workshops from kindergarten through 5th grade, and then middle school, and then high school. So those will be free during the COVID time, and then we have paid workshops for educators. So, and you can reach out to us, ask us questions, download that free COVID guide. That's really fun. And I don't know, Jeffrey, anything else?
Yeah, well, if you do download the free guide, what you'll see is that we have a version of the Holistic Wellness Wheel specific to the COVID situation. So you'll see how we modified it. So it's some of the things that supports what we discussed before. And I'm just going to tell you too, I'd like to see all 234 of you again at some point, whether we come to you or another virtual thing. This is the work that we love to do. We love the kids too, but we really love to work with educators and program specialists. So we're here for you.
Our last question, to the group is, Brad, we always say, share one thing that you liked, learned, or surprised you today. So one thing that you liked, learned, or surprised you today, if anybody, you can write it in the chat box, you can say it out loud. We're here, we love to hear your voices, but my team loves to hear one thing you liked or learned or surprised you today.
The true compassion you've shown.
Thanks, Phyllis.
For me, I would say that no matter where we are in this world, that we are all pretty much on the same page, just in different verses, but we in the same page. So that's what I got from this. So everybody's experiencing the same thing, missing our students, and
right.
Great information as well.
Self-care isn't selfish.
Yeah, they love that, Jeffrey.
Getting the self-care in.
Excellent job. Thank you.
And using that wheel, using the wheel.
Yeah, use it over and over again. You see how the Mackenzie just said, I thought the wheel was cool, not only for myself, but for the kiddos. That's what it's all about. But we have to start with ourselves. And then, again, as I mentioned before, as our mission, Julie and I, Grace, Stephanie, is that our goal is to eliminate the disconnect between you and facilitating any type of material down to the youth.
All right. You can keep putting those comments in the chat box. Lots of people loving the wheel. I saw somebody saying it's hard to evaluate myself. It is. This is not easy work, but it's necessary.